Welcome. Welcome to Community of Christ with the Shenandoah Congregation in San Antonio, Texas. Community of Christ is a welcoming and loving faith community. We proclaim Jesus Christ and promote communities of joy, hope, love, and peace. Please take a moment and like our video, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss anything, and comment to tell us where you are joining us from. Keep our contact details and share with us how we can minister to your needs. Find more information at www.seaofchristsa.org. If you would like to view past services, follow this link on our website. We welcome you, we acknowledge you, and we love you. Shalom.
Lila Gardner will now bring this morning's message, and the theme today is a vision of justice.
Good morning. You may be wondering why we're talking about justice on the Peace Sunday of Advent, the fourth Sunday of Advent. When I first saw that theme for today and I knew I was speaking, I had the same thought. Wonder why we're talking about justice and not peace. Well, I would like to suggest to you that if we do not have justice for everyone, we will not have peace for everyone. And if we look around the world today, we do not see justice for everyone, nor do we see peace for everyone. So I think it's appropriate today to link justice and peace together on this particular Sunday. When we think about justice, we often think that justice means that we get what we deserve. But if we look at the scriptures, they tell us a little different point of view. The scriptures tell us that God's justice always gives us more than we deserve. In Matthew's gospel, Jesus tells us the parable of the landowner. And I think it's a wonderful example of the justice of God. The landowner had lots of property. He needed somebody to till his fields. So he hired some workers, some laborers to come and work for him early in the morning. And then about noontime, he hired some more laborers to come. And so they continued to work in the fields also. And then later in the afternoon, he hired some more laborers, and they came and worked in his field. At the end of the day, when it was time to pay them for their labors, the landowner paid each of them the same amount of money, regardless of how long they had worked. Now you can imagine that the laborers who had worked all day thought they deserved more than those who had only worked part of the day. But this is what the landowner said to them, which I think reflects God's justice. He said, "Why are you looking so resentful just because I am generous?" That puts a whole new slant on it, doesn't it? In Matthew 20:15, it says, God's justice is fair to everybody because God is using God's nature. And what is God's nature? Generosity. In Matthew 5:45, we read, God makes the sun to shine and the rain to fall on the just and the unjust alike. In other words, God provides all that everyone needs in order to grow. As capitalists, we have a little problem with that kind of justice, don't we? We tend to be like those who worked all day and then complained when they were paid. because they thought they should have more than those who had only worked part of the day. That's not how God sees justice. When I saw the theme for today was a vision of justice, the first person that popped into my head was Dr. Martin Luther King. Many years ago, he delivered his famous now speech, "I Have a Dream," on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. And in that speech, he revealed his vision of justice. And I want to share with you just a few of his thoughts from that famous speech. He declared that it was time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. He said he had a dream that one day his children would live in a nation where they would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. In the last 60 years, we have made some progress in that area, but we still have plenty of room to grow. If we're honest, we have to admit that racism is still rampant in our country. Martin Luther King also had a dream that one day little black boys and little black girls would be able to join hands with little white girls and little white boys as brothers and sisters. We have made some progress in that area. At least they can attend the same schools now. That wasn't true when I was a child. I grew up in Independence, Missouri. And at the time that I was in elementary school and junior high, which everybody here calls middle school, there was segregation. Black children had a school that they attended separate from everybody else. It was an old rundown school called Young School, and it was just a few blocks east of the main downtown square in Independence. It was not until I was a senior in high school at William Crispin High School, and at that time, that was the only high school in Independence. That's no longer true. But when I was in high school, my class was the first class to be integrated. We had one Black student in our class, and that was it. One young man, and he was such a great guy. And he fit right into our school. He seemed very comfortable with us, and we were comfortable with him. It was a wonderful experience. And from that time on, the schools in Independence were integrated. Martin Luther King also had a dream that the discords of our nation would be transformed into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. Then we would be able to pray together, to work together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, and to stand up for freedom together. We have made some progress in that area, but we still have room to grow. Now I want to tell you about another person's vision of justice. And this is Dr. Barbara Holmes, actually the late Dr. Barbara Holmes. She died just a few weeks ago. At the end of her career, she was affiliated with Richard Rohr's Center for Action and Contemplation. But earlier in life, she trained seminary students. And the experience that I want to tell you about her vision of justice happened when she was training seminary students. She took about 12 of her students to Nogales, Mexico, to a migrant center where they were to volunteer their time. While they were at that migrant center, a small man came into the center looking for some rest and some sustenance. As they visited with him, he told them that at that night, he was going to cross the desert and enter the United States. As they looked at him, he had only a very thin jacket on his body, and he had a very thin set of sneakers on his feet, and his feet were bare. When they noticed his feet were bare, they and his feet had bandages all over them. They dropped to the floor on their knees. They removed those filthy bandages. They washed his feet. They put ointment on his feet, and then they put new bandages on his feet. All the time they were doing that, they were praying silently for his safety. There was a big man among the group of students that were there at the migrant center, and his name was Sam. And Sam took off his shoes, removed his big socks from his big feet, and handed his socks to Manuel. Manuel's face lit up with joy as he put those socks on his feet, those great big socks of Sam's. In the silence that followed, they didn't debate the issue of illegal immigration. They didn't debate the issue of whether temporary work permits would help solve the problem at the border. All that they could see in their mind's eyes were Sam's socks on Manuel's feet. They didn't know if Manuel would make it to the U.S. or not. But what they did know is that no matter what happened to him, he would have warm feet. I think that's the kind of justice Jesus wants us to practice. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about my vision of justice. I have a dream that one day the worth of all people will be recognized everywhere and by everybody. Domination will cease and true equality will become a reality. That means we will have to make responsible choices for the good of all of creation. I have a dream that one day we will be willing to change the status quo, and we will be willing to advocate for marginalized communities and pursue transformative changes that may be very difficult and very unpopular, but are very, very necessary. It's always hard to challenge our tightly held perspectives and to understand how God is trying to lead us in new ways. I have a dream that one day we will be able to abolish poverty in suffering and pursue peace on and for the earth. I have a dream that one day we will recognize that we are all interconnected with each other and the rest of creation. One small occurrence can influence a much larger, complex society. Martin Luther King once said, "Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." Doctrine and Covenants 163 reminds us of some similar thoughts, where it says, God, the eternal creator, weeps for the poor, displaced, mistreated, and diseased of the world because of their unnecessary suffering. Such conditions are not God's will. Open your hearts to hear the pleading of mothers and fathers in all nations who desperately seek a future of hope for their children. Do not turn away from them, for in their welfare resides your welfare. As we celebrate the birth of Jesus this week, remember, he came not with a trumpet sound, but with the cry of a baby. He came not to vanquish his enemies, but to forgive them. God's vision of justice includes joy, hope, love, and peace for all of creation. May we continue to make that strive to make that vision a reality. May your Christmas be filled with the joy, hope, love, and peace of Jesus. Merry Christmas to each of you.